Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In this episode, we're joined by James Wallis, who is a health coach and consultant specialising in helping and working with individuals who face weight issues and chronic health conditions without the use of medication. Be prepared to learn why most all Western food systems are making us sick, why food is the number one driver when it comes to the rise in chronic illness and disease, what the ancestral diet and lifestyle actually is and why it matters, James's hope for the future and change, and of course, much more. Before that though, this episode is brought to you by Riverside. Riverside is an online studio platform that's designed to record, edit and share high quality podcasts that are built for growth from day one. Powered by AI, you can record in 4K video or from your phone and automatically remove filler words such as ums, as, you knows, and many other speech patterns. Built for human conversations, Riverside makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. And they've recently brought out a whole bunch of new features related to live streaming, custom branding, and much more. Check out the link in the show note description to learn more about Riverside and get a 15% discount. Yes, that's a 15% discount off a paid subscription. Now though, let's dive into my conversation with James. James, welcome to Raising Consciousness. How are you doing today?
Doing just great, thank you.
My first question for you that I ask all my guests, and sometimes it trips them up. Who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, not many people like to ask that question. I would try my best. So I'm James. I'm originally from London. Currently in Australia. I'm one of two things at the moment. So one, a private health coach, mainly focusing on reversing chronic conditions such as type 2 diabetes or other issues with blood work such as triglycerides or cholesterol, for example. And then on the other side as well, I do work for a company as a fitness consultant. So I speak to people, probably about 10 people every day that I work, who are sick, obese, based in America. It gives me quite a unique perspective into the health that we have today, because rather than just sort of hearing the statistics, you can actually speak to the people who are suffering. And I try to get them on the right path to actually make sure that they can get the help they need to move far away from where they are today. So it's mainly where all my views have come from. And the way that I see health today has come from just speaking to the people who are struggling, rather than just seeing the news and thinking of putting everything into that sort of perspective.
And why does your work matter?
There's a lot of sick people. And, you speak to them, and until you can really speak to that person who is struggling, it's really difficult to understand how bad it is. And, even being like 40 pounds overweight, how that really affects every single area of life and dims their quality of life and, of course, their length a bit as well. So there's a lot of people like that at the moment, and they need a lot of help. It's much greater than what I can do.
Are you optimistic?
Yeah. I am at the moment. I feel like there's a tide changing towards it because people are becoming more aware. So yeah, I definitely would say I am.
That's interesting, because I think becoming more health conscious, I should say, myself. And then you look at like all of the things that are, I guess, in a way, like going against us, whether it's environmental toxins, big food, etc., etc. Like sometimes I feel a lot of people, I've sometimes been there myself, can get kind of overwhelmed by like all of these measures kind of like outside of ourselves. And for someone, or for people who are in the field, to still be kind of optimistic, you kind of alluded to it there in terms of where your optimism comes from. But how can people, I guess, stay optimistic when they do have all of these kind of things going, I guess, against them in a way? And especially with like all the things that, especially within health, that we get told like we need to do, like we may just feel like we're getting our nutrition dialed in, but then realize, I'm eating, I don't know, more of a wholesome, natural diet rather than, swapping it from fast food. But now I'm being told I need to eat organic because they're spraying shit on our food, right? So it's like that next thing. So like, I'm kind of wanting to dig into that a bit in terms of like the optimism and just kind of like staying on that path rather than becoming pessimistic, because there is all these things working against us, I guess.
I always say there's a million ways and a million changes that you can make to become more healthy. Not everyone's going to do them realistically, but what there should be for people is there should be clear foundation of what people should have. I mean, the foundation is basically based around three things. One, you eat cleanly, so that is single ingredient foods. Of course, organic goes into the next part of that, but one is eating cleanly, two is sleeping well, and three is just moving a little bit more than you are today. If you can do those three things, that's going to make the greatest jump for your health. going forward. So you have to have those three to begin with before you even think about, fluoride in the water or chemicals or pesticides or fluorine pans or anything like that. You have to have those three. And I don't think anyone's going to be perfect to change absolutely everything, but those are the three to start with. And if you don't have those, then you're going to be unhealthy. But have those to begin with, and then you can sort of look into, okay, is this food good for me? Maybe not. Maybe these certain vegetables aren't good for me. They interrupt my guts. Lectins, for example, with the nightshade vegetables, or gluten, or the dairies, the inflammatories. Those come after. You just need to get that foundation first, and then you can sort of delve into it. But you go onto the internet, you try and look up things to make more health, to become more healthy, and you'll find 1,000 different things. But those are the three you need to have to begin with, and then you start to build on top of that.
Working with the people you've worked with, what are the biggest trends that you've seen when it comes from like a health standpoint, whether that's trends in terms of challenges or solutions that are working for them? What's like the biggest thing you're seeing?
Trends with problems is, I would say, more towards convenience, not actively actually thinking about food and what it's going to do for them. And it's, it comes with the story of either one, they've had something which has happened in life which takes them out of a good routine, or two, work gets busy, or they just don't really take care towards it. And the less care that we take towards our food, the more we'll look more for convenience. So we'll grab the quicker things. And the quicker things, as we know, nine times out of 10 are going to be bad for us. So they're grabbing the things which are ultra processed, eating out a lot, which you can't control the food, which is going to go into that, the ingredients which are going to go into that food. So it's really all about the convenience issue that people have at the moment, and not making active effort to get the right food, or to at least cook it as well. Now, the trends of becoming better is just getting people out of that habit. And it takes a long time. So we normally plan over 12 months to do with the company that I do. Personally, myself, I normally do about 6 months, and then we see what we want to do after that. With the company, we do 12 months strictly because we want to make sure that people get the habits and it's ingrained before they even think about leaving us, rather than, a fad diet, which is not going to really work for their lifestyle. And after 30 days, they're right back doing what they were before. The trends of moving away from convenience, showing how food can work in their schedule without taking too much time, and showing how much better their life can be. Because once they get, in essence, a taste for it, of how much better it can be energy-wise and everything else, there's more of a thought of, I don't know why I'd want to go back and do the same things that I was doing before. That's the main thing that we get. There's a lot of trends. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So looking at your work, obviously following you on social and stuff, I want to focus a lot on food system, chronic disease, etc., etc. Why, from the clients you've worked with and becoming more health conscious yourself, I guess, and kind of just being in this space, why the rise in chronic diseases, and how is that linked to our food system?
It started off because I had one myself. I had an autoimmune disorder that I was diagnosed 3 years ago or so now. And until that sort of happened, I didn't really realize how bad it was. I mean, mine's not the worst in terms of all the chronic conditions. I'm a celiac, so it's just, you can't have gluten basically because your body attacks it. And that's where the starting point was, because my help that I got from the doctors that I had was pretty awful, and they didn't really give me any guidance of what to do. So that's when I looked into it myself, and then I realized, a lot of other people are struggling with this. And then, of course, when I joined the company that I'm with now to date, a lot of people are struggling with this. A lot of people don't even realize. For example, if we take diabetes, there's seven out of the 8 people who are diabetic don't actually know that they are. And with that comes a lot of problems, not just for their day-to-day life, but if they're actually going to live that long, or when the heart attack or anything else is around the next corner. So the chronic conditions it's extreme how much they've increased. And the only reason for that is what we're eating. Activity can come in with it, maybe environmental, depending on certain places. But the main thing which has changed over these years, where you see the graphs of how much they've increased, is the food and what they're allowed to put into the food, especially in America, but really everywhere. What they're allowed to put in it's just atrocious, and it's causing and driving systemic inflammation, which is causing all these different chronic conditions that we have today. That's the food.
When it does come to the food, what's like the biggest misconception that you think from the clients you worked with, like when you're having a conversation about food, etc., what's like the biggest misconception or like lie that you see that they've been told when it does come to the food that we eat?
Oh, that's a good question. There's so many, because I take my hats off to the marketing. I think like low fat and all these different marketings, they're so they're genius. They're awful, but they're genius. They're so smart. And I think the main one's got to be around, I think cereal. Probably cereal is one of the biggest ones. Like cereal's a good breakfast. You probably grew up eating it. I grew up eating it as well. I'd say that's probably one of the biggest lies that people have been told. And yeah, I think that's got to be the biggest one. I think it's got to be the biggest one. I mean, there's also ones that, eating out isn't bad and those kind of things. But I would say, I would honestly say it's the breakfast and the cereals that people have, because it starts the day off the worst way.
What are some better alternative ways for people to start off their day?
Eggs, always eggs. I tell absolutely everyone, eat eggs.
Is that your number one go-to? Is there any other? I'm thinking, if I don't know, somebody that doesn't eat, or somebody who's maybe following a vegan protocol, etc. What other options would you give to them? I mean, personally, I'm not vegan or anything, so love eggs. So I definitely agree with you there. For those that are maybe following other protocols, what other? Because I think that's it. Maybe we can dive into that actually. Kind of a little subsection is that sometimes people, and maybe this is another misconception, that going vegan is healthier, right? Like I've kind of seen that, Now, I'm not against anyone, going vegan or vegetarian, etc. If it's like from like a value perspective, like their own moral compass, whatever. But, somebody might go vegan under that misconception. And then, you actually read the labels of some of these vegan products and it's like, like what is this, like, is it real food, so a bit of a long-winded kind of question there in terms of like, okay, eggs is number one for people who are following a vegan protocol. What do you recommend?
I mean, vegan's always I would say it's the most difficult diet to follow and be successful with it and get everything you need. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but it's difficult. You always want to start your day away from something which is going to cause a blood sugar spike. I'm very much low insulin diet for everyone because, of course, you can't have fat without insulin. And a lot of the metabolic syndrome that we have today is driven by insulin, which, of course, is caused by too much sugar in the blood or blood glucose. So I used to say about oatmeal or porridge, as we say back home. And problem is it causes quite a big blood sugar spike. So the opposite that I would say, if you're a vegan, it's probably best just to go for raw vegetables in the morning. I would say whether that's carrots, whether that's cucumbers, whether that's all these different things, that's probably the best way for you to start your day without causing the blood sugar spike and sort of getting you what you need, I would say. But vegan is definitely more difficult. And when we talk about the next part of, is vegan healthy? Not the way that people are doing it today. So I believe all ends of the spectrum, when you go from carnivore to vegan, you can do it and you can get what your body needs and you can be healthy per se. Carnivore needs a little bit more longer research, but at the moment it seems like it's going pretty well for a lot of people. The problem is people do it so wrong. And vegan, especially, as you just said there, if we look at the vegan products and what's marketed to us, because we're told vegan's healthy, okay, must mean these fake meats, such as the fake hamburgers or the fake sausages, must be really, really healthy. And if you look at them, they've got like 30 ingredients in them, all based from starches, seed oils, sugars, all these different chemicals that sometimes I can't even pronounce myself or even know what they are. It's awful. If people tell me they're vegan, then you can't eat that stuff. You can't eat that stuff. Maybe once in a blue moon, but just you have to focus on the single ingredient foods. It always comes back to that same point.
Do you know where that notion or that kind of misconception around becoming vegan is healthier kind of originated from, kind of stemmed from? Is that kind of another big foods marketing kind of campaign? Because from like a moral perspective, like I'm interested if you've got any insights there.
Yeah. I think I do a lot of writing about where things started. I actually haven't done exactly where veganism started, but I've done sort of kale and where kale started, and kale sort of had its really uprising towards the late 2000s, early 2000, and that sounds like it's very similar towards veganism. I think if you're the food companies and you basically don't give a shit about the people's health, then you're going to think, okay, how can we sell the best things possible? And at those sort of years, people became environmentally conscious, and they also became conscious of eating meat and again what that did for the environment. So their stance would be, okay, let's make vegan stuff, let's make it as cheap as possible, make it as addictive as possible, and taste the best that we possibly can. And therefore these vegan products came out. Over the years you've seen a lot of marketing. We had a Netflix documentary I can't remember what it was called. It came out about 6 months ago, which was comparing people who ate the normal diet with meat and then with veganism. And then it comes out at the end that this whole thing was funded by a vegan company for their own gain. And the results they showed actually were against veganism, but they changed the results in the end. It was a very weird thing, but we can be indoctrinated pretty easily, and we've seen that over the years. But I would say it's probably over the last sort of 20 years the veganism movement has been. It seems to be quietening down a little bit now, I would say.
Interesting. Why is food one of the biggest kind of levers when it comes to the rising chronic disease? Do you have any insights there?
Well, it's because everything that goes into the food is not really supposed to be there. Our bodies are not supposed to be able to deal with these chemicals, for one. I mean, there's a huge list that we could go off, for one. But our body has only been used to what nature has produced for us. We are in harmony with what nature produces for us, whether that's oxygen, whether that's sun, and whether that's the ground, the energy charge that it gives us. The food that comes from that is meant to be within us. It's all connected to us. These chemicals and things like that, they are industrially made, man-made. Let's say, for example, seed oils, which obviously has a very black and white sort of history in what people believe about them, but they're bleached, they're deodorized because they literally smell so bad, they have to deodorize them. And then, of course, they go and refine them. And you should just see these industrial, just the place that they make them. It looks like an oil refinery, but they're making foods, well, per se foods that we are finding in literally everything that we eat, from chocolate, like our favorite Cadbury chocolate bar that now has rapeseed oil, everything breads. So everything you're eating is really going to be very difficult to avoid these things, or even like sauces like hummus and things like that. It's so difficult to try and find it without it. But these things, such as seed oils, are causing the inflammation because our body it can't process it, so therefore it's healing itself to try and make sure that it's not going to be hurt. And when we have the inflammation, that's going to start to lead in towards breaking that sort of tight junctions in our gut. It's similar to what happens with celiac. And then, of course, if we break the tight junctions, we're then allowing it to be permeable, and therefore we then get all the bad stuff going in towards our bloodstream from our intestine. So therefore, we have the leaky gut, which then causes even more inflammation, and it keeps it going round and round and round and round until you stop eating these things. Now, seed oils are just one example because you've got all the different ones. You've got artificial sweeteners, you've got a ton of sugar, emulsifiers. There's so many things, but they all lead to one main thing, and that is the inflammation. And if your body is in that for too long, you can have real problems where it's just chronic. Yeah, it's what happened with me, and it's what's happening with a lot of people right now. There's more things that I could even list off of how many things are in our food today, but seed oils are just one of the main examples, I would say, which of course are just in everything, which aren't for us and aren't made for human consumption. It's engine lubricant, which they first used it for.
Yeah, I've told this story a few times, but I will tell it again for people who have missed that, who have missed it on the podcast. So I was kind of watching this conversation unfold on LinkedIn, I think it was, and basically it was around the topic of seed oils, where there was, I think he was like the CFO of this company who was saying that seed oils aren't bad, et cetera, and then founder of another company who's very much whose methodology is very much like the ancestral way, so obviously his opinion was seed oils are very bad for human consumption. But when you look at it from more of like an observer point of view, and you dig into the guy who was the founder of this drinks company, or like the CFO of this drinks company, and you look at the ingredients of the drink, guess what was in the drink? It was rapeseed oil, etc. So I was just like observing this conversation unfold, and I was like, well, of course you're going to say that because you have an alternative motive, right? Where like, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. Well, when it comes to health, because I'm very much not. But when I kind of look at these things, I'm just like, actually, my lens is to like do what humans have been doing the longest, right? Have humans been consuming seed oils for the longest? Like, no, right? It's more, you might have insights on this, but more of a modern thing, right? Like industrial age, et cetera, So it's like, actually, what are some other healthier fats that humans have been consuming the longest? Like, let's focus there. And so like, I have no alternative motive apart from the fact that obviously I want to be healthy and I want to inspire health to everyone else. So it's kind of interesting where that kind of opinion on seed oils comes from, depending on where you look within kind of the landscape of health and just kind of online.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why people for them because the research is so corrupt. I mean, I forget the exact stat, but I believe it's around about 70% of the studies that are funded have basically, they're funded by the food companies or people who have a real interest in this becoming a positive outcome. And when they're funded by these people, the outcome is nearly always positive for them. I think it's about 15% of the time where it's not positive for them. So we have to think all the studies that we have today are basically false because the food companies are trying to get something out of it. Now, we're told, okay, it lowers cholesterol. Cholesterol is a big problem. Everything's a big problem with butter, and that's why we have to get away from it. I mean, this is now proven to be a lie, but at the end of the day, it's so ingrained in us, and especially from for example, our parents who grew up in the 80s, where of course it was very much prominent. And now it's ingrained in us, and it's going to take quite a few decades for actually us to get out of it. But where we are today, for example, with Americans, is they get most of their calories per day from seed oils, and that's around six tablespoons. It's around 700 calories or so. It's an extreme amount, and these, of course, are very high in omega-6s. Again, very inflammatory. And what it has proven to do is these go and accumulate in our cells, and they make those cells much more fragile and therefore more likely to oxidation, which of course is one of the big problems that we have today. Yet they're marked as heart healthy, and they're lower cholesterol. So it's amazing. Again, one of those amazing things of how we've been completely indoctrinated. But if people don't believe what we're saying about seed oils, just look up how they're made. Just watch that video and tell me you're happy to put that into your body. Don't even believe what we say. Just look at how they're made. And that really can give the conclusion to people of what they need.
It seems that America is one of the biggest culprits of kind of when it comes to ultra processed foods and just kind of like way of life, etc. That's not to say that where I am in England and kind of where you are as well in Australia isn't perfect. So kind of two questions off the back of that. Why, like, what's going on in obviously you've worked with a lot of clients there, for their food system to be so kind of out of sorts with what it means to be human? And then secondly, what's it like? Because obviously I only really know it's like in the UK. What's it like where you are in Australia as well?
Yeah, good question. So I think the main thing that you'd look towards is what they allow in the food. So if we look at the EU, and the UK is included in this, we allow around 3,000 additives to be allowed into the food. The US, it's over around 10,000. So everything we've banned in Europe, really dangerous things. I mean, I think probably the best word would be like Red 40. You might have heard that. It goes into like the sports drinks to diet.
Or the fruit loops.
Yeah. The stuff with that. I mean, how they've allowed that in for decades, and the FDA were grilled on it recently. And it's stunning. It's stunning how they allowed it. So the corruption in America is much more extreme than I would think, because the big conglomerates have such a hold over everything. I mean, they can lobby Congress just to make sure those bills never get passed, or they just pay off the people in the FDA, and therefore nothing ever changes, and people get sicker and sicker, and it doesn't really matter. So I would say it's mainly towards the additives. There's other reasons why Americans are more unhealthy. I mean, obviously they don't walk around as much as people in England. Travel is much more accessible. If you live in London, for example, you can walk around a lot more than if you live in the middle of nowhere in America, because you can drive over it. There's a few other reasons. But when we talk about health, so health in England, this is quite an interesting stat which came out recently, which is we now have more obese people, percentage-wise, in the UK than there is in America. So all of us English people who think, oh, okay, these Americans, these fatties, these unhealthy people, we're actually worse. So we have more obesity in terms of percentage-wise in England than they do in America. Americans have more of the big people, like 400 pounds plus people. We don't really have that too much. But slowly increasing of just the obesity, the fat around the stomach, the fat around the organs, around the liver, we're going to see a real decline in health very, very soon. And it's becoming more prominent. Australia is an interesting one because they're much more connected with nature, I would say. People walk around barefoot, and people go to the beach much more. They drink too much alcohol, that's for one. But the food here is worse than I thought it was going to be really good here. It's better than England, don't get me wrong, but they eat worse diet than most English people. Just the average Australian eats a worse diet. but you can get good food and get good seafood and good fruits and things like that. So the better food is available in Australia. Most people just don't choose to eat it. So it's unhealthier than I thought it would be. Everywhere in the West, it's kind of going the same way, realistically.
We'll go back talking to James in just one moment, but before we do so, let's take a quick break as I want to mention Wallis. Wallis is a membership, online-based health food store on a mission to make healthy living accessible and affordable to everyone and change our food system for good. I love Wallis because it stocks all of my favorite health food brands that I believe do things in the right way for human health, such as Vivo Live, Real Superfoods, and many, many others. Plus, Wallis give back to their members and community in the form of Wallis Cash, free products every Sunday, and community-only updates. Most recently, I've been able to claim some of my Wallis Cash on free delivery, which saved me money on the delivery charge, but also got delivered in no time at all. You can get started with Wallis today by visiting the link and using the code found in the show note description for £10 off your first order over £50 and access to their free membership. That's by using the code and link found in the show note description. Now though, let's get back to talking with James. What's your definition of ultra-processed food?
Well, it's not food. To begin with, it's a chemical concoction.
True, yeah.
So, foods, if we look at the definition of what food is, it's to allow a cell to be able to grow or burn. Fructose in sugar inhibits that if there's no presence of fiber in the food, because fiber can prevent fructose being absorbed instantly. Anything with fructose in, which is basically every single ultra-processed food, it's going to inhibit that cell to grow or burn. Therefore, it doesn't actually come under the definition of food. So we're eating some kind of chemical concoction, which is going to be ruining our health.
Yeah, like food-like products, let's call them instead. Like food-like
yeah. Looking like food, but actually chemically completely wrong. It's like there's cakes which you look and they make a hamburger out of a cake, but it's made with horrible ingredients. To clear up one thing, of course, fruit does have fructose in, and that's one thing where we think, okay, if fructose is so bad for us, fruit must be awful. So to clear it up, fruit has a lot of fiber. Fiber does the important thing of creating a barrier. It's like a gel-like substance barrier around your gut, so it inhibits the sugars from being absorbed instantaneously, and either stops them being absorbed at all into the bloodstream, or slowly releases them so the body can handle it, I should say. Compared to if you just have a chocolate bar or sweets, there's no fiber in there, you're going to get an extreme blood sugar spike, and then those bad things will go and happen.
Yeah, I liked that you cleared that up, because I think within some sectors within health, people are now or have been fearing fruit, and it's like, we're fearing fruit, but there's still people going into any fast food kind of restaurant, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's like, really, like, are we focusing on like the wrong thing here?
Sure.
So thank you for clearing that up.
That's all right, but I don't blame people as well, because the information can be so sort of polarized with what it is. Some people don't believe in fruit. Some people just say, okay, you should just eat berries, you shouldn't really have the rest, because the rest is sort of have been genetically modified over the years to become bigger and etc. But yeah, I'm never going to demonize fruit, especially with the diet that we're having today. So eat whatever fruit you want. It's going to be totally fine. Just don't eat the ultra processed stuff.
Yeah. This kind of leads into my next question. Because looking through your work, I noticed ancestral diet. So for the people who have never maybe heard that term beforehand, what's an ancestral diet? I think you might have already alluded to that in terms of single ingredients, but can we define that and also expand on that in terms of and more of that ancestral way of living, and why in the modern world that matters?
It's a necessity, yeah. I talk about ancestral. I'm not talking about 2,000 years ago, but I'm sure it would be this way as well. 2,000 years ago, we can even just look back to just even 100 or 120 years ago, just to get us what we can call an ancestral diet compared to what we have today. But ancestral diet is nutrient dense foods, which are just single ingredients. Yeah, we have vegetables, we have meats, we have fruits. All these are very high in the nutrients that our body needs and are made for us to eat. And of course, they satiate us as well. So it's very if you eat an ancestral diet, it's extremely difficult to overeat. I mean, you try and overeat on avocados and meats and fish and fruit. It's so difficult. Whereas with ultra processed food, you can overeat easily. So really, it's just about the ancestral diet is having nutrient dense foods, single ingredients, and of course ones that are satiating. And that's really it. And that's what we've eaten the whole way through, and we've been totally fine.
What's your thoughts on grains like, like rice, oats, etc., etc.? Does it matter on like the quality of those foods? Because obviously they are single ingredients foods. Obviously they're not when they're in being used to turn like ultra processed food.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts there?
It's a good question. I always change my stance on rice because if we look at the Asian culture have some of the lowest obesity, but they eat an unbelievable amount of rice, and white rice as well, not brown rice, white rice. So, but the problem is us Westerns can't really seem to deal with it as well. And there's a lot of science behind it, which I haven't delved into enough to truly understand it. But I know Asians can deal with carbohydrates much better than we can in the West. Now, I feel like you've got to kind of look for yourself and see, once you've got that foundation of good food and you're eating cleanly, if grains are for you or not. Now, I can tell you off the bat, if you're type 2 diabetic, we're going to keep grains up because they're going to cause a high blood sugar spike. You are correct with the quality. Of course, especially for things like oats, quality can be awful and they're going to cause inflammatories. So the main thing you want to look at with grains, if it's inflammatory to you, if you're eating a clean diet and you have, say, brown rice or oatmeal, is that causing inflammation? Is it causing you to bloat? Is it causing any issues in terms of energy, fatigue, or anything like that? And if it is, you're probably best to stay away from them. If I'm personally honest, I'll have rice. I have brown rice because it has more fiber in. I might have that once a week, if not once every 2 weeks, just now and again. So my conclusion is really personal for the person, but if you have blood sugar issues, insulin issues, diabetes, you do want to stay away from them as much as you possibly can because they're going to be one of the worst things that you can have. You might as well just be having sugar at that point.
Another one, which again, for me, kind of confuses my mind, especially with what we are eating, is potatoes. Like people fear potatoes, right? So we're fearing a potato, sweet potato maybe, although I think sweet potatoes are probably more...
Of course,
what's the word? Accepted, if that's the right word.
Yeah. More benefits towards it, yeah.
Yeah. What's your... what do you recommend to your clients there? Or again, is that kind of personalized? Because there's like this whole kind of section like personalized nutrition as well, right? So where
of course.
Where do you stand on potatoes?
I'm a big fan of potatoes just because they're so good. They're so diverse. You can do so much with them. It comes down to the same thing. Blood sugar issues. You're going to want to stay away from potatoes as much as you can. If you are going to have potatoes, you have sweet potato, it has more fiber in, and you have a very fibrous meal with it. So a lot of fiber in that meal, and then you can have the sweet potatoes. But in other cases, I mean, it all depends on what you want to do. But for potatoes as a whole, I'm not going to demonize them. I eat a lot. To be honest, I eat a lot of them. I eat a lot of sweet potato. But I use up a lot of energy, so I need to get it from somewhere. But at the same time, I love them as well. Potatoes are so diverse. I can boil them, I can put them in butter and salt, or I can make them crispy in the oven. Just as long as you're like doing them yourself. And then when we talk about potatoes, you're not talking about French fries or like stuff you get in the store, because that's not even a potato at that point. It's if you're creating them yourself and cooking them yourself, that I'm for them. But again, if you've got blood sugar issues or if you're metabolically sick, you'll want to be a bit more careful about when you choose them, in my opinion.
Beforehand, you mentioned the 3 big pillars. Obviously, we focused a lot on food, given kind of the research I've done into your work, seeing your content online, and just how, I guess, flawed our food system is, being hacked by big food, etc. In terms of the other 2 pillars, sleep and movement, exercise, etc., what work do you do with your clients to help get those other 2 areas dialed in?
Yeah, sleep's a good one. I mean, we mainly we live around the sun. Okay, we have to know. For sleep, you're living around the sun. If you do a night shift, you see what people look like when they night shift, and I've done it myself in the past. It really wrecks your body in a lot of ways because we're not supposed to live that way. So the main thing for you to sleep well is to get your circadian rhythm correct. Okay, if you are living that way, you're going to tell your body, you're literally going to tell your body when the sun goes down, okay, it's time to sort of slow down and then go to sleep. If it's light, you should be awake. So we start off with the structure of everything. Okay, so the structure of when they go to sleep, they have to be very consistent. Okay, so if you want to sleep for 8 hours, you go to sleep at, say, 10 o'clock and wake up at 6 or 11 and 7. You keep those as much as you possibly can and you stick to them. And then when you wake up, you're going to try and get morning sunlight, some sort of sunlight to tell your body and to hit your eyes and tell you, okay, it's morning, I'm awake, let's go begin the day. The next part is your eating structure. Your eating structure also has a big impact on your circadian rhythms. Whether that's you fast in the morning or you have breakfast, you want to keep it the same as much as you possibly can to, again, have yourself in that rhythm. And the same times. It's a very important one, which we focus on a lot. So if you eat breakfast, have it at 8 a.m. per se, lunch at 12, dinner at 6, and try and stick to that as much as you possibly can. And then in the evening, of course, it's getting darker. Don't eat anything 3 hours before bed, and you'll sleep like a baby. If you get into that routine, you'll sleep like a baby. Just don't drink coffee before you go to bed or do some sugar and like some crazy kind of stuff. Don't do that. That's how we focus on sleep. Activity, you have to make a conscious effort for most people, especially when we're in America, because there's no reason to be active in America. Again, when we allude to England, you're going out, if you're getting to work, you maybe have to walk 20 minutes and then walk 20 minutes back. It gives you the sort of exercise to stay moderately healthy. These guys, you have to make an active effort. So we try and get them to walk every single day for their physical health as well as their mental health, and then get them to do sort of HIIT workouts, which can be 20 minutes. And we can do that around 3-4 times a week just to be able to get that strength, also the mindset towards doing things as well. And that's the really way that we tackle it. I do a very similar thing with myself. Activity wise, I like people to walk. If they can get up to an hour walking a day and then also be able to do a short workout on that as well, then that's my ideal. That's my ideal.
It sounds simple, but a lot of people have a hard time implementing that. Do you think, like, from your experience, that's just out of habit, and once they can get into that habit, or, I'm just wondering if there's something else kind of going on in the background? I think there's like that quote that, I don't know, like, feel like in some way, like, we all know what to do when it comes to our health, but actually doing it is a completely different thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm just wondering, like, I guess the question that comes up for me is like, why,
Why don't people do it? Why isn't everyone doing this? Yeah, I think that's a question that everyone who struggles asks themselves every single day, nearly every single day. I mean, yeah, I would agree. Most people know what to do. There's a lot of things which they're kind of confused on, which of course good marketing and the internet has confused them on. But everyone kind of knows what is best for them, for the most part. There's a lot of things they don't, but for the most part. Getting people to do things is always been the hardest part. That is why coaching is a thing. The most important part of coaching is accountability. Anyone's a coach will tell you that. Without that form, you're going to have real problems. You get some people who just need the plan and they can go do it. They don't really need the help, but mostly people need accountability. So the idea is, if you struggle to get this done, you need to try and get yourself to be consistent 3 months. And that sounds very scary, but you need to find a way to get that. Whether that's you hire a coach, or whether that's you've got a very harsh sister or brother or parent who's going to give you a kick up the ass the whole way through, you need to be consistent for 3 months to even have a good go at getting yourself into a routine, a habit where it is more just a lifestyle rather than you have to make an active and conscious effort to do so. So accountability is reports. It's making sure people are hitting the goals and that they're doing what they're doing. But also, most importantly, if you do fail, knowing that is going to happen, that you can be honest about it and you can look at a way around it. Because those 1 bad days will really happen. It's just what happens on the next day after that to get back on track. If we have 2 bad days, 3 bad days, 4 bad days, this goes for anything. You lose your consistency, whether it's you working on a project or you're trying to lose weight. So accountability is the driving force to get to do it if they have really big issues of just being consistent. So that's the way that we really look at it for people. And I think it's the most beneficial for any area of coaching in my mind.
Yeah, it reminds me of a couple of things that I have come across and kind of implemented. First is around like this concept of, I'm going to butcher this, but like, don't miss 2 days.
Yeah.
So don't let one day go into 2 days or something like that, so like, let's just say exercise, something happens in your life, right? Because life events happen. So you miss a workout one day, don't let that go into 2 days, because then you start to get into a cycle. There was also another thing that I seen and started to implement as well, which was around I've kind of implemented this more around kind of like wake up time and bedtimes. Especially, I think this could be helpful for people coming up to like holiday season is go to bed within 30 minutes at the same time every night. Sometimes things happen, so it's not like 10 o'clock comes, like definitely, have to be in bed at that time. Things happen,
Yeah, of
especially if
course. Yeah.
people are parents, etc., etc. Thankfully, I'm
Yeah.
not. So, I have the more autonomy and kind of freedom to make sure that I kind of hit these non-negotiables, I guess, but to still have, life happens, so with bedtime, it's like within 30 minutes kind of every
Mhm.
night. What are some other, like, what are your thoughts on those, but also what are some other kind of maybe, I don't want to call them hacks, but like small things that people can do to help them to kind of navigate a lot of that kind of we've been talking today and kind of implementing this to stay consistent, right? So whether
Yeah.
it's doing that one day, going to 2 days, or as I shared just then in terms of like the bedtime within 30 minutes, do you have any other recommendations maybe for the clients you've worked with that have worked well, or you've seen
Yeah.
work?
The one main thing is you don't want to change your lifestyle too much to begin with. You want to make very small incremental changes to begin with. And those small changes, yes, can be you go to bed within 30 minutes of each day, because again, it gets your body into that circadian rhythm that we need. You're going to sleep a lot better. If you sleep a lot better, you're going to have more energy. Then when the morning comes, we say do the hardest thing in the morning, because otherwise you're not going to do it in the evening. Okay, so whether that's your 20-minute workout or the walk
Yeah,
that
that's
you
a big
hate,
one for me, actually.
yeah, wake up, get the gym clothes on, get it done, 20 minutes, go get in the shower, you're done. Go start your day. Okay. Because if you've done that, you've done the hardest part in the morning of the day. And if you've done the hardest part, everything else is easy from that point. And those are the two ones which, if we can start off with a good night's sleep, you're going to have energy. And then you're feeling like you've got a win in the morning. You're feeling very positive. So it's all getting into those those mindsets of getting and building up wins to then go into the day. Now, it might mean you have a horrible day the rest of the day. Maybe work's horrible or the kids drive you insane. It happens. But if we can keep doing that every single morning, more times than not, we're going to have good days and we're going to move towards a better place. Other ones can go into, of course, prepping food. We speak to probably the main people that we speak to in the US are nurses, traveling nurses especially. They have the most intense and crazy schedules. Now, I'm talking crazy. I'm talking one day they're doing a 12-hour shift or 14-hour shift in the day, then 2 days later they're doing a 14-hour shift in the night, or even crazier like that. So you have to try and prep the meals as much as you possibly can, because if you've got prep meals, you're going to avoid the convenience stuff. So on a Sunday, you could literally spend like 3 hours just creating some stuff, or an hour and a half to 2 hours creating meals for the week, and then you don't have to worry about it. So that's another big hack, which will take a lot of stress away from you, and you'll be able to just do within that day and avoid the convenience foods, the snacking, all the things which have landed you in the position that you are today. So those are 3 quick tricks which get you the sleep that you need, get you the activity that you need, and of course, get you eating clean and get you eating the food that your body actually wants and needs.
I love that. Yeah, I can definitely resonate with the exercise kind of workout thing. I don't know what it is. Like if I mean now, or well, I say now, for the last couple of years, it's just been a habit. Just kind of wake up, first thing in the morning. But then some days, just do get that wandering thought of like, do I need to do it now? It's like yes, because like I just know that I'm not going to perform, or just won't do it at like 4, 5, 6 p.m. or kind of later. It's just get it done in the morning. It just kind of helps the day go better. So yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, 100%. We see that for a lot of people as well. I mean, I just can't work out in the evening. I absolutely hate it. In all my years, I've probably been to the gym in the evening like twice. I can't stand it, let alone how busy it is as well.
And I kind of think also like from that perspective, does it affect our sleep as well? Because like if I work out in the evening, let's just say 7, 8 p.m., I usually go to bed
Mhm.
like 10 p.m. That's only 2 hours beforehand. I might after workout drink a little bit too much water. Maybe it piques my
Yeah,
appetite. Then we're kind of so out of sync with a lot of things we've spoken about in terms of no meal 3 hours before bed and etc.
yeah.
etc. So I'm wondering if the association, or if there's a link somewhere between kind of working out and doing an intense workout in the evening, and then I'll sleep.
I think you've had sleep experts on the podcast. They would probably have a much better answer than I can give. I don't believe it would have too much of a negative impact on our sleep, unless you're going to, of course, as we say, drink a lot of water or have a protein shake, for example, which I'm not really for, or then have a meal afterwards. So it's more going to be the meal, because if you're digesting, obviously your energy is going towards there, and you're trying to get to sleep. So you should go to bed, in essence, hungry, so you can sleep correctly. Yeah, I think there'll probably be more studies on either way saying it's not good, and some would say it's actually pretty good to do a workout that late. But I would have to leave it to the sleep experts to know. Mainly, we stick to workouts in the morning, just for the mental aspect of it. But if you do it in the evening, it's never going to be a bad thing, as long as you're not eating late or having protein shakes late or at all, really, in my mind.
What's one thing, James, about like, let's go like the food system, etc., and what we've been talking about there, that most people maybe don't understand, or we haven't had time to talk about today, that people need to kind of really get to grips with if they are to become more healthy?
So many things. One thing they need to understand is what food is for. What do we actually need food for? I mean, realistically, all the foods that we eat today, we eat for the dopamine aspect, the taste. That is not what our body needs. We need food for its functions. And it's always been that way. You eat food to function, of course you can enjoy it, but you eat it for its benefits. We've forgotten that. And we've just moved towards a society which is so everything's going to be good. Everything's going to taste us. You know, a lot of people don't drink water. They just drink fizzy drinks and sodas and things, which of course taste nice. We're going to realize food it's in harmony with our body, and it's supposed to be inside of us and giving us the energy that we need. Is that energy transfer. Now, ultra processed food is completely the opposite of that. So you shouldn't eat food for per se taste or what's tasting the best thing, because ultra processed food is always going to taste the best because they're experts at making it the best tasting food there is. You should eat what is going to make your body function the best. And those things are single ingredient foods, mainly meats, vegetables, and fruits, and everything that comes around that as well. So we need to understand what food is for, rather than just trying to get that instant dopamine and instant gratification that we seem to want to get with everything in life today.
We'd love to get your thoughts on this. So I think like once you really understand your point there and make single ingredient foods from nature, whole foods, etc., the foods that you eat, you know, just like your default, my experience is that actually I don't want to go back to eating the Cadbury's chocolate bar. Like if I had that now, that would be so sickly, you know, choose any Cadbury's chocolate bar, like Mars, like Snickers, whatever.
Yeah.
Plus I'm dairy intolerant, so I can't really eat that anyway. But
Okay, that's enough, yeah.
But point being is that, you know, or maybe a quote unquote healthy vegan alternative chocolate bar, right? Like I would just find it so sweet and just like sickly, etc., that actually I wouldn't enjoy it. You know, like people might think I'm bullshitting, but honestly, like I'm being completely
I agree, yeah,
truthful. You know, like I think like over time, our taste buds and that like change, right? Like, and you know, does that mean that I don't enjoy food? Like, no. But let's just say I wanted, I don't know, a brownie, right? I would make my own at home using almond flour, maybe, you know, like raw cacao, etc. Like my own ingredients that I know what's going in the food, right? I would say that actually maybe it's a lot of a mindset thing as well, because like now I prefer that because one, it's not as sickly. I'm not going to feel sick and suffer afterwards, right? And plus,
exactly,
I get to enjoy making it because, you know, that's for me, I've realized that's something I enjoy. And yeah, it gives me peace of mind as well because I know what's in it. So what's kind of your kind of quick take on that and kind of thoughts around that? Is that something that you've experienced as well, maybe in any of your clients?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. So the one thing we said, you mentioned there is taste buds. Okay, so if we take sugar as the best example, because sugar is what our taste buds adore and love. Now, to reset, so there's two things. If you've got a sugar addiction, which is way more people than we actually think there is, and it's not a technical addiction, but sugar is an addiction because it accepts the interferes with the reward system that we have, so the dopamine receptors. It, of course, hits it off. Now, every time you have sugar, if you have sugar every single day, think about a tolerance. You're not going to really taste that sweet. So you can have the sweetest thing in the world, and therefore it can be kind of sweet. Like you said there, if we take you away from sugar for just 21 days, 3 weeks, your dopamine receptors reset, your reward system resets, but also your taste buds are way more sensitive. So if we take you off sugar for a month, for example, and we give you back that Cadbury's chocolate bar or something which is really, really sweet, you're going to be like, shit, this tastes really sweet. I've never realized it tasted that sweet. And even fruit, fruit which might have tasted bland in your day of really not of really eating a lot of sugar, now tastes like a burst of sugar in your mouth. So when we have that, the taste buds become way more sensitive, we realize how sweet our food is and how much sugar is in there, and it really shouldn't be that much. Going towards it, exactly what will happen with you is once you get away from this ultra processed food and it inundating your sort of taste buds and everything else to do, you realize how bad it is, but also you realize that I really don't want to go back. Like you said there, once you eat the clean food, and maybe it doesn't taste as good as that, but once you realize the benefits of the way that you feel and everything towards it as well, you don't want to go back. And, people who say you can't make healthy food taste good is absolute lie. I love the food that I eat, and people love the food that I eat for them when I cook it. We just got to teach people how to cook properly, not just put things in the oven when they're frozen, because that stuff don't taste good.
Yeah, and even like utilizing over the last year, like different herbs and spices, and like how that can really add to the taste of our food. Like people just don't realize that because they are just shoving, French fries like in the oven, right?
Yeah.
Convenience, 100%. And I think there's a whole bigger conversation to have around this in terms of like our relationship with our food. And like once you develop that relationship with it, it kind of leads into the points you were saying in terms of understanding what food is actually for. But yeah, I agree with you. People who say you can't make healthy food taste good, I think they're bullshit.
Yeah.
To
they haven't tasted good. They haven't tasted good cooking.
That's it. James, thank you so much for your time today. It's been
not a problem.
A pleasure. Where should people go if they want to keep up to date with your work and connect and get in touch?
LinkedIn's the main one. Twitter, or X as we now call it, is also the second one. I'm becoming a little bit more active on that one, creating. So LinkedIn, of course, you can do sort of some big posts, but Twitter is the one that I'm doing extensive research into different things. So if you really want to look into how food became this way, how it became so sick, is like kale, is it good or is it bullshit? Those kind of things. They're all on my Twitter, and I try to post as much on LinkedIn with those as well. But those are the main ones to look out for. And in the coming months, something I'll be releasing as well for AI to be actually integrated in making our society much healthier and giving people all the sort of answers to the questions that we have today in these kind of podcasts at their fingertips and the help that they need. So that'll be coming in the future months as well, which is exciting.
Sounds exciting. We'd love to get you back on to talk about that. But thank you for your time today.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure too. All the best.
Hope that you've enjoyed my conversation today with James Wallis, as we have been discussing food systems, why they are flawed in making us sick, and what we can do to change it. I would love to know what you're taking away from this episode and what positive changes that you're going to make in your life as a result. Please do leave a comment below this episode of the show today, as I do read every single comment and review. You can leave comments whether you're watching on YouTube, listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you tune in to the show and get your podcasts from. I look forward to sharing the next episode of the show with you really, really soon. So I'll see you then.